Okay, so I've just got 3ds Max open now, and I want to set up a scene which is going to be matched against my image, and I can't put the folder up for some reasons. Let's just see what's happening there. There we go. Okay, so I've just put up the folder that has the image that I want to match. So it's this perspective here. So I'm simply going to drag that into my viewport, and then I'm going to turn the environment map option off and just have viewport background ticked. And so you can see it's put that image in there as the background of that viewport. And then on the utilities panel, top right, you've got the perspective match tool there. So I'm simply going to use the vanishing lines option there, so you can click at the bottom, show vanishing lines. And you'll see then you get a pair of lines, essentially, for each axis. So it follows the same convention as most 3D programs, red, green and blue, being X, Y and Z. So in other words, red is X, green is Y, and Z is blue, or blue is Z. So I'm going to make the X-axis my receding axis, or the one going to the vanishing point. So I'm going to move the line there so that the bottom of it is on that edge of that wall. There we go, and then drag the other end of it so that it follows the bottom edge of that wall there. I'm going to drag the Z-axis onto the same corner point, but then again have that follow of course, the vertical axis. The other X I'll drag to the bottom corner of this window, and then drag the other end again so that it, so it follows the, again, the vanishing point, or the line to the vanishing point. It's okay. And then the Z as well, following that vertical axis there. And then now the green line, remember, is Y, so I'm going to put that again, starting on the same corner point, but then moving the end point to follow across horizontally, and then over here the other axis again on the other side to follow the other horizontal line there. So that should work fairly well as a starting point. You can make it do a bit more, but you need to know a bit more as well to use some of the other options. So that's enough for now, and then I'm going to go to the Create menu, and then under Cameras, well, there are two options. You've got physical cameras there, but I'm going to stick with standard. So at the bottom, you've got Create Standard Camera from View. And you can see then it's actually put some of my axes off a bit. It does happen, so I'm going to fix those now. And it should then adjust my camera. So you can see in the other viewports, things are changing. So I'm going to zoom out just by right-clicking in any of those viewports, and then I can zoom in any of them, and you can see then the camera, and it doesn't look very good. If it looks like that, you should be worried, or just know that you need to do more to make it work properly, because at the moment you can see it's got a really extremely wide field of view. So again, it helps to know a little bit about photography and how a lens works, and we can tell straight away that is too wide a field of view, or the other way of saying it is the lens is too small, the lens size. So again here, adjusting these lines now, you can see the camera is changing, and it's better. So you can see there, we want it definitely to be parallel. So the fact that it was at an angle, again, is usually a pointer that, that there's a problem. So that is much better. You can see now that that is fairly close to being in line with the ground, so that's good. It's also below the ground. I'll fix that as well in a moment, but here I just want to get these axes a little bit better, see if that'll improve the view a bit more. Okay, so it's a little bit off. There's no point being perfect here because you're going to make further adjustments later, but you do want to get as close as you can. I'm just trying to make this horizontal. There we are. That's a bit off still. So I might just bring this one up and see if that's... That's what I say. So remember, red, green, blue is X, Y, Z.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it is.
How do you know
Well, Z is vertical. Right? So think of it as a, yeah, yeah, yeah. So X is this way. And if you look at the axis up here, so you've got there, see there's X and there's Y. So that's, that you can relate it to that. So, yep. Okay, now, you can see here the camera's also looking up slightly. So that's something that maybe could also be adjusted. So I've done as much as I can really with those perspective lines. So now I'm going to just switch to move by right clicking. You can choose move. And then I'm just going to drag that, I'm going to drag it up so that it's above the ground line to start with. And to see the height down in the, on the status bar, you'll get the X, Y, Z value. So you can tell visually with a perspective photo, or it's not a photo, it's a 3D rendering, but it's the same as a photo. You can tell just by eye that it's taken roughly at a normal eye level. We've got a human there who obviously with the eyes roughly in line with the horizon, so that's fairly standard. So again, looking at that coordinate down there, the Z value, 2400, is too high. Human eye level is around 1500. So I'm just going to drag that slightly down until the Z value there is lower. So 1400 and 80, that's pretty close. You can always type in 1500 there if you want to, 1600. Okay, so I've got my camera there, and now I'm going to go to the Modify tab and then have a look at the lens. You can see that is 13 mil. Do you think that's a good value for a lens? Do you know what sort of, when you're drawing your perspectives, do you know what you're doing when you're making your perspective? What field of view you're using? Obviously not. The width of your view, when you set up your perspective, you know you set the width. The very first step is to set that width. So that's one of the fundamental properties of your perspective. It can either be a narrow or a wide field of view, depending on the width of that, the initial lines that you set up either side that are your bounding edges. So you probably have all done them at a fixed, you've probably all done them at 45 or something, or 90 degrees in other words. 45 either side, that's pretty standard, or 30 degrees either side, yeah, there's some standard 60. So anyhow, think about that. You can see here the field of view is 107. So if you've done one with the 45 degree, in other words, a 90 degrees between the two angles, I'll bring this up and you'll see that would be about, what is it, 18? So when you draw a perspective like that, that's actually quite a wide field of view as well, but not as wide as what I just had. So again, you want to think of it, you know, when you're doing your perspective drawing, think about how that translates into other areas like photography, because it's the same process, same principles apply, and you should by now be able to match your perspective drawings with photography. Right? But you can't do that. If you don't know your field of view, you'll never get it. You can't, it's impossible to match a photo to a hand-drawn perspective if you don't know how to set your field of view. And you all must have done it, but again, you might have just been using a fixed angle. So it's important to know again how to change that. So you can type in a field of view. So I could type in 90, which is probably what you've done when you've been doing your drawing, and that makes it 18. But with photography, it's more typical to use the lens value rather than the field of view. Right? They're both doing the same thing, just with different values. So you've got these standard lenses. So do you know what sort of lenses you use usually for interior photography? What lens size you might use if you've seen photos of, say, small apartments where they make them look much bigger than you might think they are? What sort of lens size do you think? They actually use really small lenses, so down to about 20 mil. That widens the field of view. If you use a bigger lens size, that gives you a narrower field of view. So I've gone up to 35 there, and you can see here the cone is narrower. If I go back down to 20, it'll widen. So again, bigger is narrower, so 35 is narrower. 135 is going to be really narrow. That's a zoom lens. that's how they zoom. When you see sports photography, they often use lenses like that. Okay, so I'll go for 20, and then now I'm going to make an object and relate this, because we don't have any sizes yet, so I've got to make something to relate this to a measurement. So I'm going to make a box, and then I'll just click and drag in the top viewport to make it, and I'm going to bring the height down so that it goes below the ground plane, not up. So now coming over to the Modify tab, I'm going to adjust the length is the distance left and right in this case. So we don't have any measurements for this space, but just by looking, you can tell that corridor is probably about 2 meters wide, I'm going to say. What do you think? Is that probably about right? So then 2000, I'll type in. The width, it's not as important to have that all that precise, but I'll again just adjust that by dragging. And then the height as well, doesn't need to be that precise. Okay, so now I'm going to reposition that box to line it up with the perspective. So I'm going to use the y-axis mostly to line up that with the centre, and you can see it's actually pretty close already. So now, oops, sorry, I've just maximised the wrong viewport, so I'll maximise the camera view. Okay, so notice how the lines there on the two edges already are following pretty closely with the background. And this is one of the great things with Max, you can work in perspective just as easily as any other view. So there, I might make it a bit wider. I'm pretty happy with that actually. Okay, so I've got the edges there at the base of the wall following, again, the background. So now I can make another box, and this time I'll turn Snap on, and I'm going to right click there on that button as well and turn off grids and edge and just leave endpoint and vertex on. So now I can click and drag on the corner of the box I made previously, and then to give the other corner I'm going to press S on the keyboard to turn Snap off, and then I can bring it up, and so that's one side. That's again close enough. That's actually the wrong side, so I'll flip that onto the other side and do well, actually, I'll just do the same thing again, just make it easy. So again, with Snap on, I'll click and drag from that corner. Again, now Snap's getting in the way, so S on the keyboard to turn Snap off. And there we are, that's close enough. And then again, bring it up. You can see there that's following pretty well. Now the box on this side is still going to be useful because I can make that bigger and see if I can get it to line up with the window. That's pretty close. And then again I can just keep making more boxes. So this one actually, it's, you can see on the corner there lined up pretty well. So if I use the length property now to adjust it, it changes it from the centre. I don't want that. So instead, I'm going to right click, convert to editable poly, and then go to vertex mode over here. And then I can simply select these vertices along the bottom edge and drag that across. That's good enough. Now I can turn vertex off, and then I can go back to making other things. But before I go any further, I'm going to have more of a look now at the camera, because you can see now that I've got some bigger objects. Let's maximise that so you can see it, that my vertical axes are not straight. And that's a bit of a no-no. So do you know what makes them tilt in perspective? what makes the vertical lines go at an angle? So do you know what sort of perspective that is? So? Sort of. It's to do with the camera. It's all to do with the camera. That's right. Yep, that's right. Exactly. The target is not straight. So, okay. So here I'm going to just make sure I've got the camera selected. So if it's not selected, you can just click to select it, and I'm going to change the type there to target camera. And now I can see my target. So here I've got the Z height at 1500. So a good trick there is to right click and then select camera target. And now I can type in the same height there for Z for the target. So now they're perfectly vertical. The walls now seem like they've been raised, but of course they haven't moved, it's the camera that's moved. So what I'm going to do to move the camera and the target together is use the truck option. I always have to think about these. Yeah, truck is the one I want. So with truck, so yeah, I'm recording it. I'm recording it. Yes, yes, yeah. Okay, so over here you can see it's this option here is truck, and that's the same as pan. So in Revit you would call this pan, but in Max it's called truck, only with cameras. So there you can see I'm just trying to get those lines lined up. It's good enough. Okay, so then I can just keep going and making more boxes. I might change this camera view now to wireframe just by clicking on that standard label there. Oh, sorry, next one, default shading I mean. Then you can go down to wireframe. And so there you can see things are lining up fairly well, but well, I might just maximise that. Yeah, so then the other lines coming across here would be good, and so to make those, I'll make some more boxes. And this is really good practice actually, so here if I make a box in line with that wall there, and then give it a height, we can see it's actually in front of this line, so again by eye, bring that forward and then bring it up, and you can see then the bottom edge now lining up fairly well. So just change the width now to make that not as wide. And then maybe just to finish off with that, I'll make another box. So that's going to essentially follow this box. So in fact I won't make another box, I'll select the box that I already have and then drag it holding down shift. I'm going to drag that forward slightly, leave it as copy, and then I'll bring change the height, bring that up, bring that back a bit. So that's lining up fairly well as well. And I'll go and extend it. This time it's the width that needs to change. And if I go back now to default shading, you can see those things lining up fairly well. So this box could probably be extended to come out more, and I would probably bring that out under everything in the end now that it's done its purpose. So you can extend that out. Probably need to make another one for the courtyard, but again that can be extended out as you need to. I would also put in the reception desk there. So it's probably just good practice getting used to designing in perspective, because that can be a really good approach. And I know that perspective drawing takes a bit of time to master, so it'll take a little while to build up confidence to do this, but it's something that most experienced designers can do. Lots of people design in perspective all the time. I know I do. So here again, just by eye, I'm adjusting that box position, and I can also adjust the size there, and you can see already lining up fairly well with that reception. Again, it's all about having that camera set up initially so that then this becomes a lot easier. Okay, so once you have a setup like that, then the materials will map onto these objects really easily. And so if you were doing, again, tiles just on a few of these surfaces, you only need to render those, and then you would still overlay that onto the background in Photoshop. So I might show you how to do that later, but again, if you can at least, if you do need to do things in 3D, at least try to get the camera set up to match the perspective that you're using as a background. And if I go to high quality, it's not going to really make much difference because the shadows there aren't all that useful, so I think I'll just leave that on standard. But you can see already the perspective lines are all being followed fairly well. And so again, it'll take you a little while to get used to it, but it's one you just need to spend some time with, that perspective match tool. And yeah, it works pretty well in Max. I think it's slightly better than the SketchUp one, but the SketchUp one's good as well. If you, I think you might have tried that before, maybe. If you look at camera matching in SketchUp last year, yeah, so similar idea. So yeah, give that a go if you get time, especially if you want to do some things in 3D. It'll help you a lot. And then next time I'll show you how to put the tile patterns onto these surfaces using a mix of modelling and materials as well. We'll do that later.